Hey everybody, welcome to Board Online, Board Offline. Today we have a paid preview of Justice. Now this is a trick-taking game for 3 to 5 players. It's going to take you around 45 minutes to play, and it's for ages 12 and up. Now, if you're familiar at all with Factory 42, this game actually takes place in the same universe as Factory 42 with a completely different idea though. In this, you are actually going to be investigating and holding a trial, really, is what you're doing, for a crime that has occurred. You're going to have multiple suspects, and you're going to be playing these rounds where you're trying to determine the guilt or innocence, or I should say you're trying to either convict or acquit the suspects, oftentimes irregardless of whether or not they are actually guilty or innocent. Now, keep in mind that everything you're going to see here is, of course, a prototype, so it's all subject to change, though from the looks of it, honestly, I feel like it's probably pretty close, at least in how it looks, to the final product. The rules seem to be pretty well fleshed out. There'll probably be some adjustments to the rulebook itself, but again, it is a prototype, so keep all of that in mind. If you're interested in this game, be sure to check the description where all of the particulars will be for how you can back this once the crowdfunding campaign goes live. So when you set the game up, you're just going to have this board in the middle. It actually is double-sided, but as far as I can tell, it's essentially the same. This side has a little bit fewer markings on it, you can see over here, this shows you where the different cards can go underneath the accused. So it just kind of depends on which one you prefer. Maybe once you're more accustomed to the game, you can use this side because you get to see the artwork a little bit better. We'll flip it over on this side just for the purposes of this video though. So when you're starting a round, the game takes place over a series of rounds, and the point of the game is you're trying to get to 42 points. When you start a round, you will have this deck of cards that either say guilty or not guilty. These will be shuffled up, and these will be placed out face down, just like this, so you don't know if the suspects are going to be guilty or not guilty. You can see, just so you can see right now, we'll have 2 not guilty suspects and a guilty suspect here. But the players normally wouldn't know what these are unless they use an ability or an effect that lets them look at it. You'll have a deck of suspects that you're going to place out, and so we've got the worker, however you pronounce that, who will be suspect number 1. We've got the traitor Amy, who is suspect number 2, and we've got the sheriff Cruza, who is suspect number 3. Now, you'll see that there are these different icons here, and they are going to mainly have an effect on scoring and that sort of thing, but they do have some thematic meaning to them as well. So the worker here is a dwarf and a worker. The traitor here is an orc and a human. So half orc, half human. And the sheriff here is an orc and a commissar. You're also going to need to know what crime they are on trial for. So you'll have your deck of crimes, you'll shuffle it up, and so in this case it's conspiracy. Now this card actually is primarily just for flavor purposes. This is all flavor text here. The more important one is the crime description, which has a similar backing, but it's important to keep those separate, so maybe you just keep those separate. It's not a big deal. There's only a few cards in each deck. But you flip that over. We've got idiotic conspiracy. Now, the reason why this card is important is because this is going to be the trump suit for this particular round of the game. Now, every player is going to have 10 cards in their hand when they play the round, and there's a couple different ways. You can either do a straight deal to get to this point, or you can do drafting, and that's all explained in the instructional video that I'm also going to be putting out for this game. And you can see there are actually 4 different suits. You've got evidence, so here in this case we've got illegal acid and ancient mace. You've got testimony, so a likely tale and a solid motive. And then you've got witnesses, so in this case, the accountant. And then you also have Rosette, which is the 4th suit. Ambassador is what this one is, obviously. These cards here are not actually a suit. These are reactions, and you can use reactions to turn another suit into the trump suit. So right now you can see the trump suit is Rosette. If 3 got played at some point, then the player, and it would be played on this board. Let me move this out of the way for you real quick. Let's say we were playing 3 into the play area, and then you could then put the reaction number 3 on there to turn that into a trump suit. The cool thing with that is, with these reactions, is that you don't have to play the reaction on your own card. You could play it on someone else's card. The idea being, maybe you want, you could see that, you're not necessarily going to win, but you don't want the person who is going to win. And so you match one of these up with somebody else's card and make that person win instead to win that suit. So that's a way that you can do that. Now, the whole purpose here, let's look and see what a hand might look like. Let's say that the first player plays Ancient Mace, right? So now the evidence is the lead suit. That means that the next player will have to play evidence if they have it. So they'll have to play evidence if they have it. So maybe they play, Stained Apron. This is a higher number, so now they are winning the trick currently. But if they didn't have a suit, then they would not have to. If they didn't have the lead suit, then they wouldn't have to follow suit. They could go with something else. And so, for instance, they could play, this Rosette card here, because that's the trump suit, and that means they're winning now, because the lead suit wins unless a trump suit has been played, and then the trump suit's going to win. Pretty standard trick-taking type stuff there. And so then the last player, sees that they're going to lose, so no matter what they play, so they're just going to get rid of one of their low cards, and they'll just throw this witness out there because they didn't have the lead suit. They can't beat that trump suit, so they're just going to play Decadent Elf. And so now this player over here wins because they have the trump suit here. They have the highest trump suit. So they take these 3 cards, and they're going to decide what to do with them. So you can see we've got we've got a witness, and we've got a evidence card, and then we've got this Rosette card. Now, one of these cards is going to be attached to one of the suspects, and we'll say in this case they're going to attach it to suspect number 2, Traitor Amy. If they, let's get rid of this one for a second. So if they use one of these, witness, evidence, or if they had testimony, they could do that as well. They can assign this to add to the person's guilt or innocence. And keep in mind, this is just what the verdict's going to be, not their actual guilt or innocence, which is on this card underneath them. So, if this person were wanting Traitor Amy to be found guilty, they could then add this Ancient Mace evidence here. And you can see that it's going to add to their conviction total. On the other hand, if they wanted them to be found innocent, they could add it over here, and now it's adding to their acquittal total. And at the end of the round, you're going to have a number of cards stacked up on this side and on this side, and those, whichever ends up with the higher total, is going to determine if Traitor Amy is found guilty or innocent at the trial. Now, something else to keep in mind is with these cards, you're going to have these symbols on it. And so let's say maybe the administrator here was used to try to convict Traitor Amy. So we put this here. This is worth 3 points towards conviction initially. However, you can see this symbol right here. This indicates a multiplier. And Traitor Amy does have that symbol. And so now this actually would be 1, 2 times 3. So this is actually worth 6 points towards conviction. Now, more of these symbols can be added by, for instance, on this rosette. You can see we've got symbols here. And so maybe this rosette of council member, of beggar down here was placed underneath because the rosettes go on the top or the bottom, and you could only have a maximum of 2. The rosettes, 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. And so in this case, we've got another symbol here. So that would be 1, 2, 3. This card would now be worth 9 towards conviction because of the symbols on here. Now, why will you be trying to either convict or acquit somebody? That's going to be entirely based on your identity card that you're given at the beginning of the round. You can see we've got philanthropist, truth seeker, unionist, anarchist, nationalist, redeemer, commissar, and condemner. So if we have the truth seeker out here, for instance, the truth seeker wants to find the guilty people convicted and the innocent people acquitted. And so that's what they're trying to do. So in the case of Trader Amy, because this, by the way, has everything to do with what your victory points are going to be at the end of the game. So with Trader Amy, orc and a human, the truth seeker has zero interest in either one of those. 0 points for orcs, 0 points for humans, as far as them getting convicted or not. So they might not spend any time working with Trader Amy at all, trying to make sure the right thing happens there. The only reason why they might is because this gold bar points down here, they get +3 victory points if no not guilty person is convicted. Well, so let's go and look real quick and remind ourselves. Trader Amy is a guilty person. So if the truth seeker knew that, then they for sure would have very little reason to be messing with Trader Amy. On the other hand, if Trader Amy was actually not guilty and they saw that she was likely going to get convicted, they might start throwing some cards down on this side, trying to acquit her to make sure they could get this +3 victory point bonus. Now, on the other hand, the worker here, you can see they have dwarf and worker as these types up here. And so worker will give 2 points to the truth seeker, as will dwarf. And so they would be heavily invested in making sure that this person ended up convicted if guilty or acquitted if not guilty. But keep in mind, somebody like the anarchist could be working against the truth seeker, because while the truth seeker wants the truth to come out and the truth to affect the verdicts, the anarchist wants the exact opposite. They're trying to have the innocent convicted and the guilty acquitted. And the anarchist is going to have a vested interest in this occurring with every relationship symbol. Now, one other thing I do want to mention one other thing I do want to mention is that players will have these 2 Soul Gazer tokens, and these aren't the ones that actually come with the game. There were none in my prototype, so these are just some that I'm using from elsewhere. These allow you to actually skip playing a card during your turn, which will then allow you to have more cards than the other players for the next turn. It also lets you gain a victory point when you use one, and by playing these, you get to peek at the liability card of whichever suspect you want, which can really help guide your hand as far as where you're trying to play cards. And really, that's pretty much all there is to it. You're going to play the rounds. You're going to be building out, these workers. You might end up with something looking like this at the end of a round. Obviously, it can keep building out a little bit more than that, and you'll, then score at the end of the round. And as you're scoring, you're going to be working right towards that 42 points. And every round you're going to be getting new, you'll get your new identity, and each of these has different scoring things, different bonus scoring, different concerns as far as who's guilty, who's not. Lots and lots of variety every single round that you play. My favorite thing about the game actually is the way the scoring works here, combined with these cards. The fact that, rather than players just sort of choosing, okay, you know what, I'm going to try to convict this guy or not. These help pit players against each other, so they're actively working against each other while one is trying to acquit somebody, the other one is trying to convict them. And on top of that, being able to use your Soul Gazer tokens to try to, get a leg up on what is going on with a particular suspect. A lot of cool ideas there. The 6 different relationship types combined with the 4 different suits, and then each of those suits also being able to be affected by the reaction cards basically the reaction cards allow you to boost a suit to all of a sudden out of nowhere, you've got a trump card on the board that you maybe didn't account for previously. Really, really cool ideas here. I love what I'm seeing. I think this could be a really fun card game that you know, if you're into trick-taking games, this is one you could really have a lot of fun with. So often it's hard to find trick-taking games that have a cool or really well done theme on top of them. I feel like having the, you know, so the witnesses all have names, the evidence all has names and flavor text here, like, you know, the testimony, same thing. All of that really helps build up this this feeling of you're at a trial. The having the, even like right here with the actual crime itself is just there for flavor, just to help you feel like you're really over here dealing with this. And now I know we had this kind of funny one, idiotic. The other options, let's see, the other crimes could be treason, racketeering, rioting, smuggling, indecency, unlicensed violence. And the other descriptors could be irresponsible, indiscriminate, widespread, shameless, degenerate, high profile. So ton of great stuff going on here. Lots of variety. There's each suit has 14 cards in it, plus there's the 14 reaction cards. So a lot going on there, a lot of possibilities for how that all interacts. You're going to have, you know, in this case, look at a likely tale. If you use it as a conviction tool, it's only going to give you 1 point. If you use it as an acquittal tool, it gives you 3 points. So I love what I'm seeing here. This really feels like a special trick-taking game with some cool ideas that I haven't seen before necessarily. So, you know, take that for what you will. Definitely check it out. You know, if it's interesting at all to you, check out the description to find the location of the campaign as well as when it's going live. If you have any questions, be sure to leave that in the comments below. Until next time, if you're bored online, bored offline.